It's no secret that Highguard's launch has been a disaster.
Highguard is here, and Highguard is forever.
Why is your horse sliding like that too?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's a good feature there.
I looked online. Everyone is in the login queue right now.
A botched release, a game full of bugs, and a plummeting player count just 2 weeks after it came out. If it stays on its current trajectory, Highguard will certainly go down as one of the biggest disappointments of 2026 and another live service hero shooter that failed to live up to expectations. But where did it all go wrong? And what, if anything, can Highguard do to stay alive? It started at the 2025 Game Awards. The Game Awards executive producer, Geoff Keighley, reportedly loved this game that no one had heard of. It was called Highguard, and he loved it so much that he offered the game a complimentary spot at the Game Awards finale, basically the most coveted part of the show, where over 4.4 million people are watching simultaneously. Through this decision and many tweets afterwards, it seemed like Keighley had full confidence that this game was going to be the next big thing, and he was willing to put the full weight of his reputation behind it. What followed was a trailer that left people speechless, in more ways than one. In the finale spot of the Game Awards, people were expecting some huge AAA reveal, like The Elder Scrolls 6 or Half-Life 3. Instead, they got what looked like a no-name fantasy game where people are shooting guns on horseback. It was a fine trailer, but it's not quite what people were expecting to close out the show. The trolls were very quick to go online, and, without even playing the game, started joking that this game was going to be the next Concord and calling it Lowguard. The result was a lot of people dismissing the game before it actually released. But despite the trolling online, there were quite a few people who were more than willing to give the game a chance. After all, it was made by ex-Apex Legends and Titanfall developers, and it had Geoff Keighley's stamp of approval. Surely there's something more to this game that wasn't shown in the reveal trailer. But right after the Game Awards, the moment when Wildlight had the entire world's attention, they didn't capitalize on it. Instead, they went dark. No social media posts, no new information, no hype videos, nothing. Some thought this was in response to the negative reactions online. Others thought they were simply polishing the game and applying feedback. But the real reason for the radio silence was revealed later. Wildlight had been hoping to replicate an Apex Legends style cold launch. Say nothing, drop the game, and let it speak for itself. After all, it was free to play. Who wouldn't want to try something for free? Like, for example, a $0 gift free from Temu, which, as it so happens, we're offering you right now. Let me show you how it works. All you have to do is open the Temu app and type the code KCP9755 in the search bar. It's not a code you punch in at checkout, you put it in the search bar. Then, all of these amazing gifts will pop up, and it's up to you to choose which one you want. A capybara phone case? Free. A microfiber towel for those sweaty gaming sessions? Free. A stress ball for when you start losing those sweaty gaming sessions? Free. You can even see how much each gift would normally cost, so you can tell how much money you're about to save. The best part is, this promotion is not just for new users. It's available to everyone. Seriously, just open the Temu app, enter the code KCP9755 in the search bar, and claim your free gift now with qualifying purchase. Alright, back to the video. The game was released on January 26, 2026. They did the whole thing where they put up a banner, launched the game out of the blue, and paid a bunch of streamers to play the game all at the same time. At first, things actually looked promising. The game featured crossplay between PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. It peaked at Steam at nearly 100,000 players, and plenty of big streamers were trying it out and seemed to be enjoying the game. But pretty quickly, cracks began to show. For starters, the initial launch was marred by bugs. The servers couldn't handle the stress, people were getting kicked offline, some players even had to change their BIOS settings in order to get the game to run. On top of this, the game was slow-paced, and some of the optional game mechanics like mining just made each round feel that much slower. Within 2 days, Highguard's player count dropped by 10,000. Fast forward a week, and that number was 80,000. Today, Highguard is averaging less than 1,000 concurrent players on Steam. Clearly, something has gone wrong. But what? What could have caused this massive influx of players, but couldn't keep them around? Well, for starters, Highguard presented itself as a fresh take on the hero shooter genre. Wildlight described it as a raid shooter, with tiers of objectives keeping games dynamic from start to finish. The game features huge maps with tons of room to ride your mount, fight for position, and battle it out with the other team. The problem is that the game was initially released with a 3v3 mode only. Many players felt as though the maps were way too big for such small teams, causing lulls in gameplay where you straight up couldn't find any enemies. And there weren't enough secondary objectives like killing mobs to keep people engaged. The slow gameplay loop was exacerbated by the small roster of characters. many of whom felt like they were lacking any originality. It's one thing to put generic characters into a game like Call of Duty, but for Highguard, a hero-based game where each warden has a unique role and their own abilities, it's important for the character design to stand out. Like, did they really expect us to get hyped over Angry Beard Man? Or Edgy Leather Vest Dude? Or Tom Brady with a TikTok haircut and a cape? According to Highguard's lead designer, Mohamed Alavi, the 8 characters that made it into the game were selected because they were the best of the best, saying, quote, "We've got 8 characters at launch, and there's 30 on the cutting room floor. The cream rises to the top." Let that sink in. These 8 characters were the cream. They look generic, and many of them have abilities that we've seen in other games before. To top it all off, Highguard also failed to give players much of a reason to care about the characters, in contrast to a game like Overwatch, which laid groundwork with its marketing campaign, putting out cinematics fleshing out the lore of the world and making fans fall in love with characters like Tracer and Widowmaker well before they could even play the game. Highguard came in with a familiar-looking fantasy world featuring a cast of vaguely muscular characters and expected players to magically form a connection with them. And look, I get that it's hard to know exactly what players will and won't connect with, but that's what playtesting is for. And you're not going to believe this, but Highguard literally did not do playtesting. According to Wildlight CEO Dusty Welch, the team trusted their gut with the initial design and gameplay choices and went with what felt fun, hoping they'd be able to build on player feedback after the game launched. Welch went on record saying, quote, "That was always our plan when forming the studio. We knew we'd make a shooter. We didn't know what type or what it was going to be, but we wanted to do that surprise drop again. What we focus on as a studio is what we can control, which is making a great game that we love to play internally. Believing in that and then releasing it, and being malleable to have that open conversation with the audience and being able to adjust." Basically, the team was having fun playing the game, so they assumed that everyone else would as well. They assumed that after the game launched, they'd have time to take player feedback and slowly make the game better. After all, that's what Apex Legends did, and it worked out for them, right? The problem is, it's not 2019 anymore. The Apex Legends Shadow Drop was a huge success because it truly was a surprise. No one had done anything like that before. Plus, Respawn had a staff of over 300 people, spent 2 years working on weapons, maps, and character abilities, and rigorously playtested the game before launch. In comparison, Wildlight is a smaller developer with a team of around 100, they have no publisher, and they didn't playtest. Not really. Unfortunately, this lack of playtesting led to a very rough first impression for many gamers. These days, we live in an age where the bar for big multiplayer games is incredibly high, and the truth is that most people simply won't stick around if a game doesn't hook them in that first hour. Highguard, while good in many ways, just lacked polish, a fact that was massively amplified by the way the game was initially announced. Which brings us back to the Game Awards. Just getting a spot at TGA is incredibly expensive. According to a report by Kotaku, a 1-minute trailer could cost up to 450,000 USD, while a 3-minute slot could cost over $1 million. Just getting a spot at TGA is incredibly expensive. It's safe to assume that the finale slot, the most coveted part of the program, is probably the most expensive. Often, this slot will be filled by a AAA developer who has something really, really special to show. We mentioned Elder Scrolls 6 and Half-Life 3. These would be groundbreaking announcements, ones that would get people out of their seats. But the Highguard trailer? It just made people confused. Why did TGA give this game the spot instead of something bigger? To make matters worse, Wildlight didn't even pay for the spot. They originally had a slot earlier in the program, but Geoff Keighley gave them Finale as a gift, because he loved the game when he tried it out and was friends with some of the developers. How could they say no? It's one of the biggest stages in all of gaming. You can't say no. Under most circumstances, having so many eyes on the game would have been a great thing. But in Highguard's case, it seems to have had the opposite effect. It got tons of people in the door, but once they got inside and looked around, they realized there wasn't enough to keep them interested. Geoff's insistence that Highguard was a great game added even more fuel to the fire. Maybe if the release was more measured, and Wildlight had a chance to slowly build up the game with the help of player feedback, like Valve and Deadlock for instance, things could have been better. Instead, they had the biggest spotlight in the world shone on them and weren't quite ready to rise to the occasion. Even Wildlight's CEO admits it could have been better. These days, the gaming landscape is incredibly competitive. When you launch a big budget multiplayer game, it needs to hook players in immediately, with fresh original characters, and the kinks ironed out before it launches. This is especially true when the game is free to play. If people aren't paying for the game, and they're not hooked in the first hour, they have no reason to stick around. They're just gonna uninstall and never come back. Which is how we got to this point today. On launch, the game was immediately review bombed with 14,000 negative reviews from players with less than 1 hour played. It went from 100,000 players to less than 1,000 in a month. Many are saying that there's just no bouncing back from this. But while most of the discussion around the game centers on doom and gloom, their story may not be over just yet. As the smallest developer, they have the chance to work on their characters, the map, the game mechanics, and the core gameplay loop, and get them into a serviceable state. Wildlight has already announced that their new 5v5 game mode will be a permanent fixture, and they've promised to actively listen to what players are saying as they continue to work on content for the 2026 DLC roadmap. This includes things like new maps, a ranked mode, and a character who can transform into a wolf. Cool. Plus, their new world-building cinematic has been positively received. Speaking to Polygon, Chad Grenier, the studio head at Wildlight, boldly said that despite the negative reception, this isn't his first time dealing with negative feedback, and the team remains committed to developing Highguard. Whether it gets 1,000 people or 100 million, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the game is loved by the people who play it. This sentiment has been echoed by Chad's fellow co-founder, Dusty. However, with the player count continuing to dwindle, it's uncertain whether the game will have enough time to recoup their losses and start to rebuild. It recently came to light that the game has financial backing by Tencent, so it's possible that they'll have enough funding for any pivots. And who knows, if given the time and opportunity, we could see a No Man's Sky situation that turns things around one update at a time. Regardless, Highguard will end up in history as yet another cautionary tale of how not to launch a game. The question is, what do you think? Is Highguard really dead on arrival, or will the devs at Wildlight be able to turn things around?